Hey Quilty friends, it's time to work on the 2025 Designer Mystery Block 1 from Fat Quarter Shop. This month's block is Clear Sky and it's designed by Coriander. She's one of my favorites. Love her fabric, love watching her on YouTube. So let's get started. Okay, I have all my fabric cut. I do starch, so I starched it first. I've pressed it, I've cut it, and I'm ready to go. I've got my labels on there. So here we go. The first thing I need to do is to take some of my squares and cut those into fourths. And I'm going to take fabric A, C, and D. I use my ruler and cut. That's all I've got to do. I've got to cut this into 4 pieces. So I'm going to cut one diagonal line top left to bottom right, one diagonal line top right to bottom left on each block. I have to make 8 for piece A and 16 for piece C and 8 for piece D. So let's get busy cutting. And I'm going to cut 2 to 4 pieces at a time. I'm going to use my 60mm Alpha rotary cutter. All right. These are 2 pieces, and this is piece D. So if I cut this diagonal to diagonal, it'll be 4 pieces per square, which of course with 2 pieces I'll have 8, and that'll be my 8 I need for piece D. This is the Coriander Abloom fabric, and it is beautiful. I love the prints, I love the color. Okay, so there's piece D, all rip roaring ready to go. Now I need my piece A. This is also 2 squares. I'm going to cut diagonally. So I have 4 for each square, 8 total, and 8 is what is required. And just a side note, you do not have to have a rotating mat to be a successful quilter. As you can see, I've got this small mat, and I just move it around however I need to. So there are my 8 pieces for piece A. Looks like some didn't trim up well. My blade may be getting dull. I'm just going to snip these. I could also run the rotary cutter back over it. And since it's just a small spot, just going to snip. So let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to know if you are participating in the Fat Quarter Shop Mystery Quilt Along, or have you ever participated in it? They have it every year. Or is there a mystery quilt along you participate in from another vendor? And this is the big one. Let's see. I need to have 16, which if there's 4 per square, I should have 4 blocks here, 4 squares of piece C, and I do. 4 squares cut into 4 pieces will give me 16, and that's how many it says I need. This is one of my favorite prints in her Abloom line because of the little birdies. I think they're adorable. She also has a pattern with the birds on it where you make them. I would like to make that quilt. If you enjoy my channel, I'd love for you to like the videos you watch and subscribe. It helps me out, and I appreciate it lots. If there's something you'd like me to do a tutorial or sew with me on, let me know. One piece A, and since this is white on white, I want to make sure I've got it on the correct side. And you can maybe not. I don't think you'll be able to see it because of the lighting. But anywho, I've got my right side facing up. So to put these together, I need one A, two C's, and one D. So that's how these are going to look put together. Now what I want to do is make 8 of these. So that's going to be fun. I like to go ahead and stack these in the order that I need. I'm going to put these here. So now I can stitch in order. Okay. I have my 1/4 inch foot on. That helps me out a lot. That's sewing together pretty good. I may not pin. Okay, and this is telling me to press open. So I'm going to press these open and come back and stitch it up. First I set my seam, just meaning I put heat to where the threads are for about 3 to 5 seconds. It does help the stitching set, and it helps keep it straighter. I can tell a difference. Nobody else maybe can, but I can tell a difference when I set my seam. So that's the first thing I do. Then these are starched well enough that I can press them open easily. You know what? I'm gonna take a little more time and use my clappers. That'll make it look better. This one doesn't want to come apart as easy. Press open. And I'm not wiggling my iron. I do believe it distorts fabric. I've seen it happen. I have seen my seams get wonky when I sit there and wiggle it back and forth or try and press it real hard or iron it real hard. Just pressing, lifting up and down. Or if you do have to move it around, kind of lift your iron a little, even though it doesn't come off the table or the mat, just so it doesn't tug on that fabric in the seam too much and get it warped. This is the first one I did, and we'll sew that together in a moment. Oh, I left one out. It needs pressing. Now we can't nest the seams since they're pressed open, but what we can do is match the seam by poking a pin through here in the middle of the seam or in the seam and making sure it pokes through the seam on this side, and it does. Get it a little closer. I was a little off. See how it goes through the seam there? And it's through the seam here. And I'm not going to move this one yet. I'm going to stabilize this seam. Some people use this to stabilize. It just doesn't work for me. I do better stabilizing the seam like this, and then take it out. All right. There's no rule that you have to go extremely fast sewing. You go at the speed that does well for you, and I have found better accuracy when I slow down. Okay, with this seam, it also gets pressed open. So I'm going to set the seam, press it open. But my points match pretty well, I think. I'm pleased. Okay, creative grids, my most favorite rulers ever. What I'm doing is placing my diagonal line on one of the diagonal lines, fitting it right over top. Also, I'm placing the center of this ruler in the center where all the points meet. I'm making sure my points end at a point on each corner, like right on the seam, to make this as square and well aligned as possible. And it looks like it is. So here I go, trimming. And I'm taking my time because I don't usually trim up here on my extension table, but for the purpose of videoing, I've got it up here to show you. I just don't have it set up where I can get the camera to show from my cutting table yet. Isn't that gorgeous? Turned out really well. Here's the back. Okay, I'll be back once I've got all these done, but you've seen how we do this part. Okay, now I've made the blocks. I have trimmed them down to the proper size. Now, what I have to do is take 2 units, stitch them together in the center, so it'll leave me with 4 units like this. We have these 8 pieces we sewed together. We take 2 of those and make this piece, and I'd like to call your attention to here. Don't get concerned that you are going to miss points. This will be taken care of in the 1/4 inch seam. So you want to make sure you have a 1/4 inch here, so when that seam takes place, you don't lose a point. So this looks like a good bit here. Also here, it looks like about a 1/4 inch, so we'll be good. These do not have this because when they get stitched and lose that 1/4 inch, they'll still have the point there. So just, if you ever think something looks wonky like that, think through, well, what'll happen when I take my 1/4 inch seam? And you'll be fine. So now what I'm going to do is finish stitching these together. I do recommend using a design board. That's what I had at the beginning of the video with all my pieces laid out. So this way, you can lay things out the way they need to be sewn, and it helps you make fewer mistakes. And it helps you keep up with all your pieces. All right. So I have this piece, And I want to put my other pieces together in the same fashion to make sure I don't have any mishaps and stitch incorrectly. If you can see this. All right. So I'm going to sit this to my side and pick up from it as I go along. I will pin because I want to make sure these seams match. So I'm going to pin. I'm not going to chain piece. I'm going to take these one at a time so I can make sure my stitching's looking good. Okay, I'm pleased with that. What you think? I'm going to go ahead and stitch all of these, then I'll press and use the clapper. Because right now my design board's laying on top of my pressing board. So I don't want to have to lift that each time. It's a smidgen off, but I don't think it's enough for me to worry with and go back and do it again. Okay, I need E and G. These will be cut diagonally as well, making 4 triangles of each. Piece H will be cut diagonally once to make 2 triangles, and we'll go from there. So let me get my cutting mat out. Here are the pieces that it had me prepare for the next stage of block 1 for the Designer Mystery. Y'all, they gave enough fabric to make another block. I could probably make 2 quilts with as generous as they are on this fabric. But I'm going to save it all till the end. And each time, like next month's block, instead of using next month's fabric right away, I'm going to use what's in here before I start cutting into month 2's fabric. So hopefully that way at the end, I'll have the largest pieces I can have of leftovers and scraps. Let's see what I'll make from that. Kind of like this. Okay, so the first thing I've got to do is stitch E and G together like this. So I'll assembly line those. Oop, my thread came out. Used to, when I first got my Juki, Opal, her name shall be Opal. When I first got Opal, I had to break out the manual every time to thread it. Now, I've done it so much, it's committed to memory, thank goodness. However, a few months back, I could not sew probably for about 2 months. Just didn't have time for it. My husband had a critical illness and there wasn't much time for sewing. So first time I used it, first couple of times I used it again, I had to break out Opal's manual because I'd forgotten how to thread it. Laying these pieces out in the way that they get stitched together will help you, because what you don't want to happen is stitch it on the wrong side. This is the side I should stitch together, but if I reverse that and stitch it from this side, my block's not going to come out right. And I will be using my seam ripper. Or just cutting it out again and putting these in the scrap pile. And I even do that sometimes now. Get sidetracked and might flip it and stitch it the wrong way. And that's helpful with chain piecing. I can see they're all going in the same direction, so it helps me to know that I am stitching them all correctly, or I've stitched each one incorrectly. They're all in the same bucket. Okay. All right, this seam will get pressed open, and I'll use my clapper. Hopefully those pieces that I pressed a few moments ago are cool now, because I have limited space and limited clappers. Yep. See how pretty they turn out with the clapper, how flat the seam gets. Sometimes I get in a hurry and don't want to let the clapper sit on there long, or don't use the clapper. And it's okay, but it just looks better if you do use them. I want to show you, I've made an oops and I just saw it. See how each of these look good? Which one is different? Even after all that, I still matched it up incorrectly. So I'll get the seam ripper out on this one and fix it. I'm not worrying about clipping my dog ears yet until I get ready to trim it, and I'll trim it. And when I trim it to shape it up, I'll get the dog ears then. My next step is to connect these to piece H. All of these should have orange on the left, white on the right. I'm checking that to make sure I haven't made an oops on those, and they're all correct. Now I'm going to stitch this seam. You can pin or not. It's up to you. I'm going to press these. The seam is pressed to the light side, and then I'm going to trim these down. So this is my inner block, my inner square. These pieces go on after we get this together. And we've still got B left. So we'll be doing something with that. I have it laid out the way it needs to look when it's finished. So what I'm going to do is sew together these pieces. Then I'm going to come back and sew together the rows. Paying attention to my instructions to see which way the seams get pressed so it lays as flat as possible. This is so pretty. When I first saw this line, I wasn't too sure about the colors. I'm not usually a fan of peachy colors, but the more I saw what was being made with it, I was just like, that's beautiful. Okay. Next row. Now I'm going to set my seams and stitch these together. I want to be sure with the white on white that I've got the right side facing up, because it's hard for me to tell sometimes. But the block I just made that's cooling is going to go right here in the middle. Well, I'm in the process of making. Like this, and like this, and like this. Oh, it's so pretty! Okay, let's get the middle block finished, doing row 1 and 2 together, then row 2 and 3 together. Once we have that done, we're going to stitch these sides to the center block, and then we're going to stitch these pieces together, and then connect it all. Okay? Fortunately, the way the instructions told me to press allows the seams to nest, and that makes it a lot easier to match seams. Because what happens when you nest seams, you've got one seam pressed to the right, one seam pressed to the left, and they slide against each other, and kind of where the fabric is folded over, it kind of bumps up against each other and causes the seam to match and, I would say, lock in place, so to speak. Now what I'm going to do is see if my points look good, and if they don't, I may fix them. Well, I guess not points really, but where they match up. Looks fine to me. I'm pleased with that. I'm going to set this seam and press it and then let it cool for a moment. While I'm waiting for that to cool, I think I'll go ahead and stitch some of these pieces together. This and the corners need to be stitched together, so I'm going to work on that because I don't want to just sit here and wait. I'm going to stitch this together again, nesting my seams. And as it cools, I'll stitch the bottom of the outer pieces, the one that has the corners, the white corners. The other end. And I'm pleased with how that turned out. Set the seam and press. And while that cools, while that's cooling, I'm going to stitch the bottom corners. I'll just give it a quick check and make sure it looks okay, and I'll set the seam, press, and put under the clapper. This is cool now, cool enough. It's time to put the side pieces on. You'll recall it looked like that. Pieces that go on the top and the bottom are cooling on my clappers. So I'm gonna, the good thing about this is there are no seams to match up. This seam here doesn't have a seam to match up. So that's great. We're near the end. I have these two pieces ready, they're cooled, and the piece I just made has got to cool so we can connect it here in the middle. So let's give that a few minutes. Final countdown, y'all. I'm attaching the top row to the center and the bottom row to the center. As I'm stitching these, I want to pay attention to make sure here, here, and here that I do not stitch into my point. I'm going to try it just the normal way, pinning and stitching, and if I struggle, I'll take it out and I'll mark my 1/4 inch seam on each piece and match it up that way. If some of these pieces don't have quite a 1/4 inch, there may be an issue there, so I'm going to pay attention to that when I'm stitching together and see what I can do. These seams do nest, thankfully. So I really have two seams to match up that nest. And then I have this one seam in the center to make sure that I don't lose a point. So I think what I'm going to do is a basting stitch in the areas where I could lose a point. So this is on Juki Pearl. So this is on Opal. My Juki, I have cranked it up to a 4 for stitch length. And I'm just going to stitch those sections that could lose points or have a point to lose. And let me see what it looks like. I just stitched that centerpiece basically with a long stitch. Okay, this is good. This is good. I didn't lose a point. I'm not sure you can see it. So I didn't lose a point. I can tell because if I pull the seam, press it open, I still see the end of my point. So I'm pleased with that. I'm going to go ahead and stitch a normal stitch length, get this pressed and under the clapper. Well, you know what? I'll go ahead and stitch both pieces before I press it and put it under the clapper. So that's good news. All I've got to do is stitch right on top of my basting stitch and I should be fine. And then I can take that basting stitch out. In fact, I may go a little under the basting stitch just to make it easier. Let's see. So here's my basting stitch. I may go one thread over. That will give me a little bit more space with my points and it'll make this basting stitch easier to pull out. So I'm turning my stitch length down on Opal. And once I get to where I've got a basting stitch, I'm going to make sure I'm about a thread above it. And this is where it's important to take my time. And it's okay to go slow, y'all. You do not have to rush through everything in life. Can you see where I'm just about a thread above my basting? Before I take out that basting stitch, I want to look. Yeah, it still looks good. So what I'm going to do is slide out that basting stitch. Being careful not to get my permanent stitch. Okay, I have out my basting stitch, and it's laying even better now. I didn't miss a point there, but boy did I get close. Alright, I will now attach the bottom portion, doing the same thing. Okay. I did not lose a point. I will set my seam, press, and put it on the clapper. Okay, I have it finished. The square is complete, the block is complete. Block 1 of the 2025 Designer Mystery Quilt Along. One is by Yoder, and it's called Clear Sky. Yeah, Clear Sky. The finishing kit's on the way, hopefully soon. It's supposed to come along with block 2, and I'll add that and show you all. Happy stitching!